Your story is really fascinating, Frank. And before I ask my questions, I've had a thought bouncing around in my head. You've mentioned Nixon a few times. Most of us don't actually have any living memory of Nixon's behavior. So could you tell us what Nixon was like and how his presence influenced your political evolution?
Well, both David Nolan and I were incensed when Nixon cut the last thread to the gold standard and imposed wage and price controls on the economy in 1971. That's really what provoked David to go ahead and start the committee to form a Libertarian Party. And that was just kind of like the last straw that indicated to both of us that the Republicans were going to be a lost cause forever.
So in 1971, then, the Libertarian Party, the impetus was the abandonment of the gold standard to really get everything formed?
Well, that in part, but also imposing wage and price controls on the economy.
Yes, that's all pretty concerning, isn't it? How do you think the Libertarian Party has evolved over the last 46 years?
Well, I have had to think about that, and I have to admit that I don't believe that I can make very much of a commentary on the progress of the party over this period of time. Number one, I always assumed from the very first 2 to 4 years when I was on the executive committee national that the younger folks were going to come aboard, and there were going to be a lot of them, and there was going to be a lot of talent, and us older guys would more or less have to step back and let them carry the ball as best they could. Now, that's what has happened. Some of the mistakes have been made, but all political parties make mistakes. And the thing you do is you go back and you look at your fundamental principles, if you happen to have some, and then say, well, what can we do to better advance our core message? And the party in recent years has not done well trying to advance the core message of libertarianism.
What would you say the core message of libertarianism is?
Self-ownership.
Just that simple statement of self-ownership?
Well, that entails the non-aggression principle, and then that entails everything that happens in politics. I mean, all government is involved in using coercion. Once you take coercion out of human relations, you no longer have government. You have people making voluntary negotiations among themselves, millions or billions of negotiations among themselves, and they are then self-governing. Now, this is, of course, considered to be utopian, but I don't matter. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, our entire country was founded on utopian documents. It's done okay so far. We might as well push it a little bit further, right? And the closer we get to it, the stronger we get, I think.
I think so.
So what do you think needs to change in the Libertarian Party in order for us to approach these goals a little better and actually make policy influences on the national level?
Well, there are two things. Back in 1975, I believe it was, I wrote a paper to offer to the National Committee called Link 80. What I proposed was that the Libertarian Party focus on running candidates for Congress, Libertarians in Congress, LINC, in 1980. That didn't gain any traction. But I still believe that the most important political offices that the party at this stage of its development could do would be to find the best people that could run for Congress all across the country in any district where it's possible. The presidential races are, to me, mostly a money pit. Because of the ballot laws, the way they're structured in many states, we are compelled to have a candidate for president and vice president and to pick presidential electors in order to remain on the ballot. And that leads me to my real hot button. which is that all ballot access laws need to be abolished as unconstitutional.
So you think that the most important thing for the Libertarian Party to focus on is getting members elected to Congress, because
Yes.
that's an easier threshold to meet than president or senate or governors? Is that your main thrust?
Well, you have the situation where some individual might be outstanding in some particular state as a candidate for governor. I would not say that there should be no exceptions, because people pop up out of nowhere and suddenly you say, wow. But by and large, it would be easier to find candidates to run for Congress than it will be to find outstanding candidates to run for statewide office like governor. Some of the lesser state offices, perhaps that would be okay. But as far as the national party is concerned, I think they ought to be recruiting people to run for Congress. And then I think that we ought to be really pushing this idea that ballot access laws are censorship of voters.
That's a really good point. One of Larry Sharp's ideas is that the Libertarian Party should act as a kind of referee. And if the Libertarian Party had members in Congress on committees and talking to people, they could actually move the conversation in that direction. Even if they couldn't sway votes, they could move the conversation. Do you think that that would be important? Do you think that that would help?
Yes, initially I do think that would be important until the party became such a large plurality in the Congress that we would actually begin to be able to enact all the reforms that we prescribe in our platform, mostly abolishing just about everything you can think of.